This is ContactTalkRadio.com. Consciousness in action. And you are taking action into your consciousness by tuning into Contact Talk Radio.
And on TuneIn.com, Ping.fm, and UpSnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio.
Welcome to Life Mastery with Todd Allen, the talk radio show that dives into the science of higher consciousness. Join Todd and his guests weekly at 10 a.m. Pacific Time and learn how to live a peaceful life with intentional mastery. Enjoy a survey of inspiring topics such as abundance, intention, health, manifestation, love, and transformation. It's all right here, leading authors, speakers, coaches, entrepreneurs with stories and messages to support your well-being, let alone your most evocative dreams.
Hey, it's another groovy day, and most of you already know that's because I make it that way. When I got up this morning, that's the first thing I decided it was going to be a groovy day, and the rest of the day is set up. And if something else happens, I just think back and start over because it's all groovy. And it's Life Mastery Radio Day, where we get to hang out with some really cool people. I get to hang out with my really good friend Jackie, and Jackie and I both get to talk to some really cool authors, speakers, and coaches. And so for today, the show's about stopping. So we're just going to stop right here. We're done. It's all about, no, I'm just kidding. We're not going to do that. But before we get on with the show, let's just take a minute and stop. Let's just take a minute, clear our thoughts, take in a deep breath, and just stop and think about that lamppost. Think about that lamppost, and don't forget to say hello when you walk by it. And smell the roses. Think about what it is that you connect to. What is it that you connect? Could be the lamppost, could be the tree, could be God, Allah, the dude, whatever that is. What gives you power? Think about that. Focus on it. Let's take in a deep breath. And just let that breath out with a big focus on just stopping and let your essence flow up through your speaker box, out into the universe. Think about what it is you connect to. Now think about those dreams, visions, and goals. What is it that you aspire to be, do, have? Focus on those. Don't work out the details. Just stop on those things that you want to bring into your life. Taking a deep breath. And another big and just let those flow up through, out into the universe. And for sure, allow the universe to make those come true for you. Stop for a second and let the universe make those come true. Hi, Jackie. How are you today, my friend? Have we stopped enough?
We have. Well, you know what? When you started talking about that while I was stopping, entered my mind this old, I think it was a movie. It was called Our Man Flint. I think it may have been a series of movies. And the main character, who was like a spy or a agent or, undercover agent or something like that, he had this watch that this little arm would come out on his watch, and it would start hitting his vein there, wrist. And it would slow his heartbeat down to where his enemies would think he was dead or something. And that would get him into like places. And so that's kind of where I went. It was like stopping. If I only had one of those watches where I could just like stop. So I don't know if you remember that show, but my mom loved it. And therefore I ended up watching it a lot because she had it on TV. But
there is a thing called tapping. We've talked to a couple of people about tapping. And I think that is the concept there, right?
Is it? I don't know.
Because you're focused on that feeling, that sensation, and you're really stopping. And you're taking the time to tap. Yeah. I'm sure it has a lot more to it. We're gonna have to find another guest about tapping, because now I'm even more curious. What's going on with the Speak Feed Lead? You're in the thick of it. You got classes going.
Good classes going like crazy, and summer classes are ramping up. We've got another opportunity to to work with a group of kids at an elementary school. The school has asked us to come in and do a virtual workshop for their 4th and 5th graders. It's going to be a 90-minute workshop. And
I said I'd help with that, right? I'm helping with that.
Yeah, you are helping with that. And so far, there's 35 kids registered for this. So I think we're going to need another couple more instructors so that we can break them out into smaller groups. But, what we start with is conversation. A lot of these kids, because they're on devices now, we've lost the art of face-to-face conversation. That's where we start with is how do you talk to somebody? What are the questions you ask that start a conversation? How do you tune in with these organs on the side of your head that helps you to listen effectively and understand other people? And then how do you respond appropriately to what they've just said with your active listening skills? So kids seem to love it. They learn a lot from it, and they recognize that once they've learned those rules of effective conversation, they've been lacking in that area. So it's something that they can see
stop and smell
improvement in. Yeah. So we have fun.
Stop and smell the roses is what came to my mind when you were saying that.
Stop and have a talk with somebody. Have a conversation, a real conversation.
I'm sure that's going to come up in our discussion today. What else do we? Oh, I'm trying to get this thing.
You're multitasking, yeah.
What else is new? Tell people what they'll find on our website.
Well, Todd has done a lot of shows in the 10 or 12 years you've been doing this, Todd. There's a lot of recordings of shows that are, of course, now called podcasts on our website. And then a couple of years ago, 2.5 years ago or so, we went to this Facebook format so that you can see us and hear us. And so we have all of those actual videos on our YouTube channel, which you can connect with through our website. You've got a list of all the guests that are coming up that are scheduled. And you've got a blog about each show. So if you didn't catch it and don't have time to stop and listen to it, you can actually just read through the blog and get a pretty good synopsis of what the show was about and what we learned and that kind of thing.
Jackie does a really great job about highlighting what we talked about on the show and creates a blog post. It's really cool. It's a really good read. I've even considered creating a book. I texted you. I didn't get anything back, but I think that would be a cool idea.
Yeah, maybe. It might be a good idea. We'd have to get permission from all our guests, though, to use their name and information, right?
I think we already do.
Speaking of books, that's something else on the website is your book and my book, right? So they have
all the links
to look at that and the links to purchase those if you'd like to. And, they're worth reading. They're both, Todd and I have a similar mindset in the things that we find valuable in life and the way that the lessons that we've had that taught us those things. But we come from different angles in our books. So
isn't that? I know. I think about that a lot. I think it's pretty cool though, because it makes for a great radio show.
That's right.
And while you're on the website, sign up for the newsletter. Jackie creates a newsletter every week, and it's really cool. And it highlights who's been on the show, who's coming on the show, and her blog post. So it's pretty cool. There's lots to do. And we ask, please, please, please tell a friend about our show. If you enjoy it, your friends are going to enjoy it. Yeah.
Just share our Facebook page with them and say, hey, you need to like this. You need to get on this so you can see the great shows every week.
Yeah. Okay. Are you ready for the show? Our guest is waiting patiently. Our guest today is David Kundtz. And David has enjoyed several careers, including 19 years as a Catholic priest, 20 years in the practice of psychotherapy, and over 2 decades teaching courses on managing stress and emotional health, and writing. He has a graduate degree in psychology and theology and a doctorate in pastoral psychology. Among the 7 books David has authored are Quiet Mind, Moments in Between, Awakened Mind, and the most recent book, and what we're going to be talking about today, if you haven't already figured it out, The Art of Stopping. Just stop.
Stop in the name of love, right?
Yeah, there's a good one. I thought so many of these metaphors that we hear, but The art of stopping is how to be still when you have to keep going. Pretty crazy thought. David, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you today?
I'm doing great, and it's wonderful to be with you, Todd. Thanks.
Are you having fun yet? Or we're gonna have
Oh yeah, I've been having fun for the last 15 minutes.
So the art of stopping. I have to tell you, David, I was thinking about this. And some of the best gifts that I've received, many different things, really required no effort on my part. Is that the direction that you're headed with? I mean, in your book, you talk about stopping and then the creative juices flow.
Yes, exactly.
And allows your imagination to gear up.
I like to talk about the inner wisdom that we're all born with, and that voice, that self-awareness that we come into the world with. But so often the distractions of the world keep us from hearing that voice. And as you say, all we need to do is do nothing. Shut up, be quiet, be still. And that gives you access to your inner wisdom. And if you don't have access to the inner wisdom, you risk, of course, living the life that the world dictates, which could be pretty tragic when you really stop to think about it. So if you really want to know who you are and what you want, which is really the definition of stopping. Definition of stopping, here it is. Doing nothing for a moment or a month, right? In order to wake up and remember who you are and what you want.
Yeah. But I was thinking about this too, David. There's a whole population and a whole bunch of people out there that's their fear. If they stop, they're going to have to realize who they are. Do you hear that? Yeah.
Oh, yes, I hear it a lot because that's terrifying. In fact, probably the most terrifying thing that any of us can really face in our lives is ourselves. And that's what we always are keeping at bay. Here's a challenge that I received many years ago, and I offer to you and your listeners. Imagine yourself in a room, no disturbance. You're alone. No one can bother you. And I want you to sit in a chair for a half hour and do nothing. Now, what do you think of that? And most people would scream bloody murder.
They couldn't do it.
They couldn't do it. In 2 minutes, we'd be standing up and walking around and looking at this because we're afraid. And that's the thing that I like to really talk about, because I believe that fear is unfounded. It's really an invalid fear. We fear that there's I don't know what we fear. We fear of ourselves. We fear there's some monster that's going to come out and consume us, or that we're going to remember some horrible thing from our past. And my experience as both priest and counselor is no, there is no horrible monster waiting for us. And if there is, well, then you darn well better get it out there anyway.
No.
So the fear is unfounded. And if you punch through the first 5-10 minutes of that silence, maybe you'll find that you're okay being alone. Maybe you'll find that, hey, I'm not bad company, am I? I really am here. This really is me, and I can access what I need to access, and it will give me freedom.
Talk a little bit about, I saw Jackie jumping in there too, but I just have one more burning thing, because this is a lot different than meditation, right? It is. It's different and similar. Maybe explain for us the differences between meditation and just stopping. Okay. Meditation, most of the time when people speak of meditation, they're talking about some kind of a specific program where you sit like in Zazen or in many different methods of quieting and of being still and of sitting in a chair and going inside, and there's rules and there's procedures that you follow. Stopping is similar to that insofar as the end is the same. We want to access our inner life, but stopping is designed for Western minds, Western contemporary minds, and that because most of us
probably would theoretically like to meditate, but don't.
Yeah.
So stopping is something that you really can do, especially when you pare it down to what I call still points, which are very, very brief moments of quietude that you put in your life, say 20, 30, 40, 50 times a day. Little moments of stillness, of turning in, of being still. Then you'll come to the end of that day much more relaxed and aware of who you are.
David, I wanted to address this fear that you mentioned, because
Yes.
you'd mentioned it, that sometimes we fear what we're going to find as we start to think about who we are and our past or whatnot. For me, I feel like my fear is, there's legitimately this fear of missing out now, because social media gives us news 24/7 nonstop. We can find out any information in a split second. And so there is this new fear of missing out. They call it FOMO. But I also, for me, I fear that if I stop, then this list of tasks that I have created at the beginning of the day, which experts will tell you to do, that I'm not going to get all these things accomplished, even if I just take a few minutes. And I'll tell you, I'm the kind of person that when I'm standing in the line at the grocery store, I am uncomfortable just standing there and looking around. I tend to pull out my device and check my email in those few minutes, if it's even that long. And so this is a cycle that I see myself in. And I see, as I read through your book, I see that we've all gotten in this cycle where we can't even stand in a grocery line for a few minutes without checking our email, because there's this constant, I've got to get all this done, and how am I going to do it? And I got to make sure I'm staying on top of things. Society has driven us to this, right? I don't think we made conscious choices to be this way.
Yes, no, I think you're absolutely right. And I'm going to disagree with the experts who tell you to make a list, okay?
I figured you would.
I'm going to disagree with those experts. Lists are fine. I'm not saying that never do that. No extremes here. No cutting out everything. But making a list sets you up. It absolutely sets you up, because you're not going to get it done. You know you're not going to get it done. And that's just another frustrating day. So I would say that if you wake up with a list, burn it, throw it away.
I like it.
Get rid of it. Or maybe have one or two things you're going to do. But if you set up this whole list, you're going to be disappointed. So throw away your lists and just open up yourself to the day and let one thing lead to the other. Yeah, I know, easy to say, harder to do.
I proved that. And I was taught you're never given any more in a day than you can handle.
All right.
And there were certain times in my life when I had all these things to do, and my brain was constantly thinking up another thing to do and another thing to do. But I did what was at hand and what was important, and those other things didn't get done. And it really didn't matter, David.
It doesn't matter. See, that's the thing, Todd. It really doesn't matter that those things don't get done, except you've set yourself up to make yourself think they matter because somebody told you to do it.
Right.
Oh, and if you're still enough and quiet enough, your inner voice will tell you to burn that list. That's because that's the inner wisdom that's there for you. One of the things I like to start out explaining is I divide stopping into 3 different ways according to the amount of time that you do it. One I already mentioned, still points. Those are the brief moments where you pause, turn in, and remember. It can be a second or 2, 5 minutes, a half hour, a short time. Then there are still points, longer times, a day, 2 days, a weekend of really doing nothing as much as possible. Is it really possible to do nothing? Well, that's a theoretical question that I don't really think is very important because it doesn't make any difference. Do as much as you can, do nothing as much as you can, do nothing. And then the third is grinding halts, which are really long periods of time, like a week or a month. And these happen they might not happen in everyone's life, but they might happen around times of transition, moving home, getting married, getting divorced, having a child, the big events of life. You might be able to take a longer period of time of stopping. My own experience was when I finally left ministry. It was a real crisis in my life, and what I did at that time was nothing that I planned to do. I didn't do this intentionally, but I went away for a month in the Northern California coast, and I stared at the ocean for a month.
Wow.
Because I didn't know what else to do. My life was falling apart. I was a vowed and happy priest and doing my work, and all of a sudden I wasn't. That's a long story, but I wasn't. It wasn't there. So I said, oh my gosh, now what do I do? So I went away and I did nothing. And after a period of time, I realized what happened during that month. I didn't realize it while I was doing it, but afterwards I realized I was scanning my life. What's important to me? What isn't important to me? What are my values? What do I want to do? Who do I want to be? Those are the things that I had access to. And when I went back to my life, eventually I made the decisions that I made, and it all worked out. Not saying that there weren't problems and challenges. There certainly were. But I finally did what I was able to do, what I wanted to do. And I'm convinced it was because of that time. The
reflection, the introspection, and
exactly being
just
still.
letting your mind. So help me understand this.
Your mind, right?
Just letting your mind and not really thinking about what to do and how to do it is just letting your mind cruise.
Exactly.
So, David, you mentioned then during this grinding halt that you took, you started to scan your life, what was important to you. If all we can do right now is Stillpoints and have those occasional stops, is that also something that we should do, is think about what's the most important in this moment of my life? Or should we try to just get quiet and not think anything? Is that the point?
Yes to the latter.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Yes to the latter. Just be still. Don't do anything. Don't try to figure something out. No, vacate everything. Let everything go. Be still. So close your eyes, turn your energy in, and be still. Now, if you want to, you can add a little prayer if that's meaningful to you, or an affirmation. Think about someone you love, or you can do it. See, one of the things about stopping is no rules. No rules. Just do nothing.
That kind of stopping.
Do nothing as much as you possibly can in any way that you can. That's what it's all about. For a long time, for a short time. My conviction is if you do Stillpoints, those little brief moments of doing nothing, that you'll like them so much and it'll have such a good effect in your life that you'll want to do a stop, that you'll want to take an afternoon and say, you know what? I'm going to go to the park and I'm going to spend 3 hours. I might take a book, I might not, and I'll walk around and I'll look at the trees and I'll listen to the sounds and I'll just sit still on the bench and I'll just be quiet. You'll want to do that rather than being afraid of doing that, because you will have accumulated these still points in your life that have begun to give you access to your wisdom. I'm convinced that will happen.
Yeah.
Well, let me kick this by you, because I found great solace. I used to own 10 acres, and it would take me 3 days to mow it. 3 days.
Uh-huh.
But I found great solace in just sitting on that tractor, a mindless task, going back and forth, contemplating whatever came into my mind. Is that kind of the same thing?
It is not kind of the same thing. It is
the same.
It is that's it. You remind me of my brother. He said the same thing. He had this huge lawn, and he said, I love it. I just sit there and I go back, forth, because what's happening there is you're accessing your inner life. It has the distractions of life are gone. There's nothing to distract you. You're used to the noise. You're used to the smell of grass, and you're sitting there and now you begin to think, and something comes up for you. And maybe during that stopping time, maybe one of your friends from 3rd grade come into your mind. Why did that happen? There's a reason for that. Stay with that. See what that has for you. So yes, you're describing stopping to a perfection.
So David, what I think I hear you saying is we've been told, with well-meaning, we've heard from coaches and leaders for years that we really need to take time and connect with other people. We need to be successful. So that requires hard work. It requires nonstop, sometimes 18-hour days of work. What I'm hearing from you, though, is it's not the focus perhaps should not be so much on learning about other people, but we've got so much learning to do about ourselves. And that because there's so many other channels going on all the time, we haven't yet tuned into the frequency of our own station, right? So that we don't hear the news that's going on there because we're listening to so many other shows at the same time.
I like your metaphor. I think it's great. Yes, that's exactly right. And if you have yourself, then your relationship with other people will just take care of itself, because you become accessible. You know who you are, and you present who you are. And therefore it facilitates your relationship with other people.
Because I know even in, in meditation, which you said, you like to think differently about, even if you're meditating, you're required to be doing something, right? You're honing in on your energy, but you're also told, don't let your thoughts go elsewhere. You want to stay in tune. But what you're saying is opposite of that too, that meditation tells you not to let your thoughts wander, but you're saying, let your thoughts wander. Just go with where your mind goes, because there's a purpose in that.
Exactly. Very often meditation teachers tell you, if a thought comes into your mind, let it come and then let it go.
Right.
Just sort of this kind of movement. And that's exactly right. Yes.
Huh. Wow. That's definitely a revolutionary way of thinking. And I look back at my grandparents and my parents, who were all hardworking people, but they had a balance that we don't have today.
We don't have.
Because businesses closed at 5 or 6 p.m. and then everybody went home, and then they had time with their families, and they went back the next morning and We don't have that. Everybody's working all the time. Businesses are open 24 hours a day, every day.
Every day.
There is no stopping. There is no stopping happening in our society. And so we have let that feed into our own personalities and physical cycles or whatnot, is this nonstop go, because that's what makes us successful, and it's not true.
So mental illnesses are increasing, stress is increasing, suicides are increasing. And really my conviction is if people would learn to stop and to let their minds go and to access their inner wisdom, that would all decrease.
Coming from, I'm talking to someone now who used to be a Catholic priest. It used to be that businesses were closed on Sunday.
Right.
You could not find a grocery store open on Sunday.
That's right.
Because it was the day that the nation celebrated the Sabbath, right?
Right.
My parents, when businesses started to open on Sunday, I remember my parents going, "Oh, this is the end of society." And and I thought that was a little bit silly. But now, decades later,
not so silly.
That could have had a major impact on what we're talking about right now. That one thing that when businesses said, "Oh, why not open 7 days a week? I'll make more money that way." But it changed society.
It's the basic American belief in bigger is better, more is better. Faster, more, bigger. And that has led us to where we are, because that's a lie. We have to come out and say it. More is not necessarily better. Bigger is not necessarily better. Faster is not necessarily better. And we have to call those things the lies that they are. And see, the whole thing is this stopping is very countercultural. Very countercultural. That's the difficulty. Stopping in itself, easy, because you don't do anything. But getting to a point of convincing yourself that that's important, very difficult. Very difficult to convince yourself that this is true.
So let's highlight, David, just a little bit. We've talked a little bit about it. I'm being told my internet connection is unstable. Am I okay, Jackie?
You look okay. Sound okay for right now.
Okay. I'm not really unstable, but it was telling me that. What are the features of benefits of putting a practice in our life of stopping? Describe for us what we can expect and what are some of the differences?
Okay, in the book I have six or so what I call the benefits of stopping. Let me just list them and then talk about a couple. One of the benefits of stopping is you learn to pay attention. Attention is one of the most important things in our lives. To what do we attend? We get the gift of relaxation. Some people never have it in there. Some people never really have any true relaxation in their lives. They go from pillar to post, and they're not relaxed. We get the gift of solitude, which doesn't sound like a gift to many people. It sounds like a punishment. But if you realize that solitude is precious, that's a gift. It gives us the gift of boundaries, of knowing. This gets, Jackie, to what you were saying earlier, the gift of boundaries, of knowing where we end and somebody else begins. We don't get enmeshed. We don't get separated. It gives us a gift of knowing our boundaries. It gives us the gift of embracing the shadow, the dark side of our personality, of ourselves. That this is the Jungian concept that is so important to understand, the dark side of ourselves, which we keep hidden. And the dark side does not necessarily mean the bad side. It's just the dark side. It's the hidden side. It gives us access to that, which is so urgent. And finally, it gives us a sense of our purpose in life. Why are you here? Why are you doing all this running around? Why are you making money? Why are you having kids? Why are you getting up in the morning? Why? Okay, that's a pretty important thing to know, or at least have the ability to ask the question and be in the process of answering it. I don't know if we ever get to a complete final answer. I think that's an ongoing, but at least have the question in front of our minds. What am I doing here? Why am I doing all this? That's a pretty important question to keep on asking. So those are some of the benefits. And then, of course, there's lots of physical benefits, health benefits, mental benefits that we have. Our country is in a crisis of health right now on many levels.
Mental health and
physical health. Our healthcare system.
This would really be, I'm sure you feel this way, this would be a simple solution.
Yes, so simple. No money, doesn't cost anything. You don't need any equipment. You don't need to buy anything to do it. Just shut up. I hate to be that.
Get a T-shirt.
But just what I'm saying it first to myself, David.
No, I get it.
Just shut up. Be quiet. Be still. And then things begin to come up. Important things we forget. And in being human beings, when we forget things, what happens? We forget that we forgot. And then we don't have any access to it at all. It's gone. It's lost. We can't retrieve it because we forgot that we forgot.
Well, I picked up on that in your book, and you made the statement, or the thought was posed, that the faster you go, the less you remember, and the slower you go. And it is so true. If you've got a lot going on in your mind, and you gave an example, if you've got a lot going on and all this stuff's cooking and going, you can't remember stuff.
Right.
You forget things, simple things, that if you just stop for a second.
Exactly. It's from Milan Kundera is a Czech novelist, and he has a syllogism which says, slowness is to remembering as speed is to forgetting. And your example was exactly right on. If you go slowly, you remember. If you want to forget, speed up. Go ahead, just run around like crazy, and you won't remember. Yes.
It sounds like we've all become hyperactive children.
Yes.
You know what I think?
I think that's a good.
I have 4 grandchildren, and when they've had sugar, I'm just like, they are literally bouncing off of walls. They're going crazy. And it sounds like that's what we're doing. We're doing it in a more adult way, but literally we are just bouncing around. We're trying to stay active. We're afraid that if we stop, we're going to fall asleep and miss something or whatever it might be. And there's some parent up there going, stop it, sit down.
Well, why do you think?
Take a break.
Why do you think the children are doing it? Because they see us doing it.
That's right.
Exactly.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's what we have become, Todd.
It's such a simple message. It's such a simple message that I have for the world, and the world does not hear it. Doesn't want to hear it. Doesn't want to hear it. Is afraid to hear it. Oh my gosh, what will happen if I do nothing? A waste of time.
Yeah, that's true. That's part of that fear that you talk about, is that if I don't move every minute toward this end, then I'm not going to reach that end. But you go back to the hare and the tortoise story, right? It was the hare who thought, yep, I'm going to go faster this, and then took a couple of breaks. But the tortoise, tenacity, just like, okay, slow and steady, And so we don't have to worry so much. We don't have to rush. We can take moments and enjoy.
Or it's like the executive who's climbing the ladder of success, and she's climbing and getting up there and having great success and getting more money and all the things that happen when you're a successful executive, until she gets to the top of the ladder, when she realizes the ladder's leaning against the wrong wall. Oh my God.
We've had guests on the show who've told that story.
Yes, okay.
Literally, that's happened to them. So
yes, that's right. It happens to so many people because they're not still enough to know who they really are and what they really want. Yeah. So many people working hard at things they don't like, and really putting off, oh, when I retire, I'll do this, or when I get this, I'll do that, or waiting for the moment. No, do it now. Don't wait.
No wonder high blood pressure is so rampant in our society.
Absolutely.
Oh my goodness. So this book, you just wrote this book. It came out in January. You didn't just write this book, but this book came out in January. The Art of Stopping, How to Be Still When You Have to Keep Going. And it came out in January. I always like to ask authors, what great things have you heard after somebody, what are the comments that you've heard after somebody has read your book? Anything come to mind? Have you heard something?
Well, I got a review of one of my books on Amazon, and it was the shortest review, I think, of any of my books. And the comment was, saved my life.
That's big.
Wow, I thought. And the headline of the review was, if you're ready, read this book. And then the comment itself was, saved my life. So I feel such profound gratitude, more than anything, of being able to speak to the world through writing. It's been a wonderful gift for me. I love it.
David, if you'd known the concepts that you're teaching in your book before you took that month-long break, how do you think your life would have been different?
Wow, what a question. Help. It would have been, I think, profoundly different. Yes, I think it would have. I don't even know how to begin to enumerate the ways in which it would have been, but I think it would have, because I was running. I was very, very busy, a very, very busy man, doing this and doing that, and getting all the accolades and everything that you get from doing everything and running fast.
But in the line of work you were in several different ways, you were serving people. Right. So it wasn't like you were necessarily working because you wanted to make so much money. It sounded to me like your background was, my purpose in life is to help other people.
Yeah, no,
sometimes we think that's worthy of all of our time being spent, but you're saying that even if your intentions are good and you're not just out to make tons of money so that you can live on a private island somewhere, even if all the work you're doing, the activity you're participating in is to help other people, you still have to stop. Right?
Absolutely. Thank you for articulating that. Yes, very much so. Yeah, because very often people in the helping professions are just running around like crazy helping people. And the more you run, the less you help, is my conviction. And the more you run from yourself, the less you're going to help others.
The faster you pedal, the slower you go.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Wow.
Amazing. So what else are we missing, David? Is
one of
I think, well, one thing came to my mind is you're a writer, and during these stopping periods, is it helpful or does it behoove us to write, or is it just stop and be still?
I would say the latter, stop and be still, write at a different time. Journaling is great. I talk about that in the book. I think it's wonderful. But journaling is not stopping. Okay. Another thing that I was going to add is that a lot of people have a metabolism, or they're extroverts rather than introverts like me, that find it difficult physically to stop, to just sit still. Their metabolism is such that they just need to keep going. They're like jitterbugs or butterflies or hummingbirds. They have that kind of metabolic action. And so for them, I suggest stopping while moving, which is like pacing. Pacing is walking in a predetermined route around a room, for example, in your bedroom. You can do it anywhere or outside. Walking a predetermined route so that you don't have to watch where you're going. And you can just, monks do this too. You see them in their cloisters, walking up and down, reading, but just pacing. Or have you ever heard of the labyrinth?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, walking the labyrinth is a wonderful way to do nothing, okay? Because you're walking around this predetermined space. You come to the center, it's a path. It's predetermined. You don't have to think about where you're going. So for people who find it hard to physically sit still, I suggest stop while moving, pacing, or using a labyrinth.
Interesting. Now, David, one of the titles in your book is Notice, Name, and Narrate.
Narrate.
Can you tell us what that means?
Yeah, okay. Notice, name, and narrate is basically it's how to deal with feelings that you're having. And the first thing to do is to notice the feeling, because so often the book that I wrote is called Nothing's Wrong, and it's especially for men. Notice that you're having a feeling, because many men don't even notice
how to express it.
They just slip right by, and they don't. So notice the feeling that you're having, then give it a name: mad, sad, glad. Give it a specific name. I'm feeling mad, I'm feeling happy, I'm feeling whatever. And then thirdly, and this is the key, express the feeling in a way that's legal and moral and fulfilling to you. Then the feeling it's like a furnace. You put the energy in, it's combusted, and it's given out to the world. That's the notice, name, and narrate process.
And is that something that might come up while you're stopped? Is that you start to have feelings?
That's right. What comes up most often when you're stopped are feelings. Exactly.
Or you miss something, right? So
this is what we're afraid of. We're afraid of those feelings. But I say, notice them, name them, and then get them out. If you don't get your feelings out, they're going to get buried, and they're going to get buried alive. And a buried alive feeling causes you trouble. It'll either come out some way. It'll come out as sickness, or as mental health, or as some dastardly deed, or as for many men in violence. Feelings will out. And if you don't out them under your control, they're going to get outed in a way that's going to harm you or somebody else. That's the whole
that's
idea.
a fascinating concept.
Yeah,
isn't it? Really? I mean, it's so, again,
so simple, David.
It's so simple. It's so simple. It's nothing new. There's nothing new about any of this.
Right.
I don't claim to originality. I claim only to trying to put it in some kind of a system that we can deal with, a system that we can understand and practice.
Yeah, you use some really good examples. All throughout our society and our culture, we have these metaphors or these things, and I think Emerson was a big one way back in 1840.
That's right.
2 years and hung out by a pond and wrote about it. And people can read about that, or we hear things like stop and smell the roses, or say hello to the lamppost, or all of these things. So it's in our culture, it's in our knowledge, but yet we forego it.
If we could read the Transcendentalists now, would be the time to read them. They're wonderful. Emerson, Thoreau, absolutely. Yeah. They have a message for us.
Yeah. Now, there's a few stories from people that you relate in your book who have tried this or who were living a life aside from what you're teaching. So is there anything that you'd like to share with us from the book, the story?
Oh, boy, there's so many examples. The one that comes to my mind for some reason is a very old client I had. He was in his 80s and had just lost his wife, and we were dealing with certain things. And he came in one day and told me this story. He said, I have a daughter who lives a 2-day bus ride from my home. And I wanted so badly to see her. Saved up my money. He didn't have a lot of money. Retired, lived on a pension. And he said, I bought a bus ticket to go see my daughter. And I got on the bus. And I sat on that bus and looked out the window for 2 days. He said, I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't know anybody. I didn't even have to change buses. And he said, that changed my life at 80 some years old. Because, what I was remembering. Why? Because he stopped.
Couldn't do anything.
He cleared the field. He was watching the world go by. It meant nothing to him. And so his mind gave him that gift. He said, when I came to my daughter's house, he said, I was practically crying. She was wondering what was wrong with me. And I said, no, nothing's wrong. Nothing's wrong. I'm just remembering. And when he read about when we talked about stopping, he said, that's what that was. It was a grinding halt for me. 2 days.
Wow. Nice.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you imagine 2 days, Jackie?
I would love that. I would love to just get in my car and drive and not know where I was going.
You'd have to get on a bus.
Better on a bus. Better on a bus.
Possible
if you're driving a car. Possible.
Yeah.
The doing nothing part of this is doing nothing as much as possible. Right. One guy in one of my seminars said, the closest I get to doing nothing is playing golf. And I said, that wouldn't do it for me. But if it does it for you, fine. No rules here. Right. Do your doing nothing as much as you can. And then my conviction is the more you try to do it, the better you get at it.
Yeah, that's a practice, right, David? I mean, it's like riding a bike.
Exactly, like riding a bike. And once you realize, boy, this is a rich experience. I'm really not a bad person to hang out with. I've got some interesting stuff, going on.
Well, in chapter, let's see, I think it's 34. You talk about that fear that we kind of started the show with. In chapter 34, you talk about fear. The title is "I'm Afraid," and you share this poem by Pablo Neruda. Is that something you'd like to read for us, that poem, or would you like for me to read it? Or
sure. What page is it on?
It's 182.
Yeah, I love poetry.
And I think this one is very applicable to our conversation today.
Okay, I have to get the light. Is that all right? Fear. Everyone is after me to exercise, get in shape, play football, rush about, even go swimming and flying. Fair enough. Everyone is after me to take it easy. They all make doctor's appointments for me, eyeing me in that quizzical way. What is it? Everyone is after me to take a trip, to come in, to leave, not to travel, to die, and alternatively, not to die. It doesn't matter. Everyone is spotting oddnesses in my innards, suddenly shocked by radio awful diagrams. I don't agree with them. Everyone is picking at my poetry with their relentless knives and forks, trying, no doubt, to find a flaw. I am afraid. I am afraid of the whole world, afraid of cold water, afraid of death. I am, as all mortals are, unable to be patient. And so, in these brief passing days, I shall put them out of my mind. I shall open up and imprison myself with my most treacherous enemy, Pablo Neruda. Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I
Yeah.
thought that was very appropriate to what we've been
Neruda's
saying, that we
marvelous.
are our own worst enemy, right?
That's
Because
right.
we
And he
don't
says,
take time. Yeah, we don't take
I'm
time
gonna
to
lock
know who we
myself-
are, to understand our purpose. And so your tool, your methodology, your philosophy here is that we need to stop, let our minds just connect with who we are. And I can't even imagine all the solutions that can be found to life's problems if we just listen, right?
Right. Yeah.
I was reminded of something I was taught, and that is if we talk to our best friend the way we talk to ourselves, we wouldn't have a best friend.
Interesting. Probably true in some ways. I have to think about that.
That's kind of what cured me with that negative self-talk. It's just like, wow. I mean, and something else that you said earlier was, if your relationship, what I was taught and told was, is if my number one relationship is with my creator, what I connect with, and my second best relationship is with myself, then all other relationships I develop will be true.
Good, solid thinking. I totally agree. Another thing I like to add about stopping is that if in any way you can do your stopping in nature, it's going to augment the whole process. In other words, get out into the natural world, even if it's the park down the street or in a big city, go to the park, or if you can get out of town to be still. One of the things I love is called still hunting, which is going out into nature, finding a place where no one will see you or find you, sort of hidden, settle down among the trees or the leaves or the bushes, and just be still and listen. Listen to the sounds, see what you see, hear what you hear. And this is so helpful to the process of quieting the mind, because it's our home. Our world is our home, and we're at home when we do that. So that can be a great help.
That's why I live in the woods on a lake.
I'm envious. Yeah. I live.
Oh my goodness, my friends, we only have about 2 minutes left, and I just want to thank you, David, for bringing your thoughts, simple thoughts and ideas to our listeners and to the world. Really, I think you're onto something here, and don't stop, because I think the world needs to hear this, and however we can get that message out, I think that would be a good thing. So, and are you open to coming back on the show?
Sure.
I think we've got a lot more that we could talk about, and thank you again, sir, for showing up as you.
Much. I've totally enjoyed it, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Wonderful.
Jackie, any takeaways? I could see those wheels grinding because I know you.
One last question for David. If I can find time to go out in nature, sit down and be still, is it okay if I fall asleep?
Absolutely. No rules.
Awesome. That's probably what would happen.
Okay.
That's very funny. That's about all we have time for today. I hope you enjoyed the show, and I would really appreciate it if you would tell a friend about the show. Jackie and I have a blast. We always have a really cool guest with some great thoughts and ideas just for you. Thoughts and ideas for you to use on your very own life mastery journey. Lastly, please, please, please make it a great day, because it is all about choice. And you should start choosing to stop. Just stop. Stop. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you for tuning in to Life Mastery with Todd Allen, the talk radio show that dives into the science of higher consciousness. Join Todd and his guests weekly at 10 a.m. Pacific Time and learn how to live a peaceful life. For more information on Todd and his guests, visit his website at www.lifemasteryradio.net. That's www.lifemasteryradio.net.